Chameleon has a bag with thousands in it. Take the dough, take Cam too, and let me go. Wang motioned towards the backpack. I don't want money. A price has been set on both of you. A price that cannot be paid in cash. The cries of those that you have deprived and those that you have addicted have tipped the scales of justice and they must be balanced. Your very freedom will be the offering. Without warning, Chameleon sprang to his feet and attempted to run past the man in black. The man reached out and touched Chameleon. With a violent jerk, Chameleon crumpled to the ground with a yelp. The man in black spun around and found Wang running to the head of the alley. The gang leader stopped and motioned toward a large black luxury SUV that sat parked at the curb. Anacondas. Get over here. The ranger thinks he's gonna knock us over. He shouted. 4 ski mask-clad men filed out of the SUV and raced into the alley. They followed Wang with guns drawn. They stood next to the motorcycle searching for the masked man in black. Chameleon lay on the street unconscious and the ambulance sat undisturbed. There was no sign of the ranger. Wang. Man, did you get spooked or something? One of the men spat. Zip it. He's here. He put the hex on Cam. Look at him. Without warning, the man in black appeared in front of the motorcycle. The masked man seemed to glow as he stood and glared at the gang. The thugs leveled their pistols on the masked man and fired. They continued to fire until they had emptied their magazines. The bullets passed through the ranger and dug into the brick wall. Wang's motorcycle was riddled with bullets as well. The bullets that did not stop in the wall or bike ricocheted off the wall and forced the goons to hit the ground. All the while, the ranger stood unfazed by Wang's underworld vanguard. After reloading, the thugs fired again until their pistols clicked harmlessly. Without warning, the ranger vanished. The ranger had watched the motorcycle massacre from a nearby fire escape. When the thugs were out of bullets, he switched off his decoy and jumped down onto the roof of the ambulance. His movements were cloaked by the gun smoke that lingered in the alley and the temporary deafness of the gunman. The ambulance bounced slightly when he landed, and it was not until he had taken a few steps before one of the gang spun around, spotted the vigilante, shrieked, and drew the attention of the others. The thugs quickly turned toward the ambulance and stood gawking. Fools! Ranger hissed. Take him! Wang shouted to the others. We ain't got no more bullets. One of the goons replied. We won't have no more till we knock over the delivery truck at Ace's Sporting Goods. Cut him then. I don't care. Just stop him. I order you. Wang screeched frantically. The thugs drew switchblades and approached the ambulance. When the ranger did not join them on the ground, they began to climb the metal box that made up the back of the vehicle. The ranger glanced down at his steel-gauntleted right hand, flicked his wrist, and sparks bounced between his fingers. The masked man then crouched and placed his right hand palm down on the roof of the ambulance. Electricity surged through the body of the vehicle. Protected by shielding, Ranger listened as the thugs cried out and fell to the ground stunned. He then climbed to his feet and looked down at the dazed criminals. Wang was not among them. Wang streaked down the alley desperate to escape. He could rebuild his gang if he was free. The gang leader stumbled to a stop and doubled back when the ranger appeared in front of him. His fear multiplied when he found himself face to face with the ranger again. It was as if the ranger was a spirit that could appear wherever he wanted. In a panic, Wang attempted to hide in a stairwell that led to a delivery entrance that was below street level. So kind of you to join me. The ranger's voice boomed in a mocking laugh from the darkest part of the stairwell. With a shriek, Wang raced up the stairs and hid behind several trash cans. The sound of approaching sirens cut through the evening air. Wang wanted to flee, but he was too terrified to move. Wang was the head of the constrictors. He was the most feared man in the Korean community, and he was scared out of his mind. He watched as the ranger slid down the side of the ambulance and walked toward him with his revolver drawn. How could you counter a force with so much power at his command? Wang threw a talisman made by a temple priest at the ranger, but he did not stop. He crossed himself and faked prayer. Wang had nothing left. He simply sat and stared up at the ranger dumbfounded. "You have finally found a place that you belong," Ranger mocked as he towered over Wang. Then with terrific speed the vigilante bound Wang hand and foot. "Paid in full," Ranger rasped after tying Wang to the rear bumper of the ambulance. Without another word the ranger turned and began to walk away. He leisurely reached into his pocket, retrieved a large silver coin, and flipped it into the air. The coin flashed as it flipped through the air end over end. It emitted a high-pitched bell-like tone as it bounced off of the asphalt. Minutes later police cars screeched to a halt at the head of the alley. Police officers jumped out of their cars with guns drawn and quickly secured the area. A woman with dark brunette hair emerged from an old caprice and walked through the crime scene ignored by her fellow officers. The woman was in her 30s and dressed in jacket, t-shirt, jeans, and tennis shoes. Her detective's badge was clipped to her belt and her hair betrayed the fact that she had hurriedly brushed it and bound it into a loose ponytail before answering the call. The woman's dress and stride were carefully calculated to minimize the fact that she was a woman. The detective took in the crime scene as she walked. The Constrictors were one of the tougher gangs in the city. They controlled 80% of the drug trade in Northern Virginia, and all of it in Arlandria. There was only one man that could rip apart the Constrictors. It was her job to find that man and make sure that he did not meddle in police business. The detective found the Constrictors' ruthless leader tied to the bumper of an ambulance. The notorious drug lord appeared to actually be glad to see the police. In fact, Wang was confessing to the drug robberies and begging for the police to return what had been stolen. "Officer, where are the EMTs that go with this ambulance?" Britt asked the nearest policeman. "According to records this ambulance was stolen a month ago," he replied. "Something this big was missing for a month?" She sniffed. "It got lost in paperwork before they noticed it missing," the officer shrugged. "Take the junk away." "The ranger won't curse me then," Wang pleaded. "Must have suffered a nervous breakdown or be injecting some of his product," a sergeant commented as he watched Wang be freed from the bumper and then handcuffed. "Are you new to this beat?" the lady detective inquired. "I just transferred here from Dumfries," the sergeant answered. "I'm Detective Brittany Grant with the Ranger Crimes Unit." "The Ranger is no drug-induced illusion," Britt replied. "You mean he is for real?" The look of surprise on the sergeant's face matched the tone of his voice. Britt was about to answer when the beam of her flashlight fell upon a silver object. It was a large coin. Britt put on a pair of gloves and then picked the coin up. The coin had the scales of justice engraved on it on both sides. Above the scales the phrase "paid in full" was engraved. Britt stood up and dropped the coin into a plastic baggie and sealed it shut. "What is that?" the sergeant inquired. "The ranger's calling card," she answered. "That could have prints and all sorts of forensic evidence." "That should make things easier," he interjected. "It's a nice thought. Won't happen though," Britt replied knowingly and then turned and walked away.